Coming up on today's show, we're going to check out some players to watch for in the NFL Combine. I got 25 names for you guys as that gets rolling, depending on when you're watching this, either on tomorrow being Tuesday or today, if it's Tuesday right now when you are watching this. So before we look at the top players to keep an eye on for in the NFL Combine, here are the Broncos' biggest needs. Quarterback is number one, and they can address that in the NFL Draft, no doubt about it. Tackle, edge, linebacker, and guard. To me, quarterback, tackle, and edge are in its own kind of tier because they can fix linebacker in free agency by bringing Jewell and A.J. Johnson back. And guard, I mean, it's important, but it just doesn't stack up compared to those other spots. So let's dive into the quarterback class here. These are 5 guys to keep an eye on for. A lot of them, hopefully you already know all these names at this point because it's the NFL Draft Circle, and this is what we have been talking about for quite some time, really across the league. So Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis are in Tier A. Sam Howell, Desmond Ridder are in Tier B. And then Carson Strong, in my opinion. I know I see a lot of people vouching for this guy. I've watched his stuff. I'm not a huge fan of it. I'm sorry, Carson, if you're watching. But when you also parlay in the fact that he's had 2 bad knee injuries, one in high school and one in college, it makes me pretty weary to draft this guy to be the next quarterback. And I don't want to pick someone in rounds 1, 2, or 3 that you don't believe can be a starting quarterback. You can do that in round 4, 5, 6, or 7, but not in days 1 and 2. The Broncos need to prepare for all options because I don't know what they're going to do at 9. I think it all depends on if they land a quarterback in the trade market. If they get Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, easy. They won't have pick number 9. That'll go to those teams. If they get a Kirk Cousins, a Jimmy Garoppolo, someone of that nature, maybe they still have pick number 9. I would sure hope so, that those 2 guys would not get a 9th overall pick out of them. And if that's the case, then they got to look at 9th overall pick as how can we improve the rest of our team. So if they don't end up trading for a quarterback, they got to be ready to pick a quarterback at number 9. So I just don't want to see this team, which I'm sure they're not going to do, but I don't want to see them bank on trading for a quarterback, have it not happen, and then go, all right, I guess we should throw in some tape here and see what Kenny Pickett's all about, because that's too late if that ends up happening. Speaking of the quarterback class, who's your favorite? I'm not a big fan of anyone. I think if you've watched the show before, you've heard me say that. I like Kenny Pickett. I love the upside of Malik Willis. But if any of these quarterbacks were in last year's draft class, none of them would get taken in the first round. I think it's just teams are forcing a first-round pick. So who's your favorite, though, after I kind of ragged on all of them? Let me know in the comment section down below. And while you're down there, how about you hit that big red button and subscribe if you have not already? Because here at the Broncos Breakdown, we are putting out news and rumors content throughout the entire offseason. We are pushing 6,000 subscribers, just over 100 away. Would really appreciate it if you have not subscribed to hit that big red sub button. And if you have subscribed, send it to a fellow Broncos friend or family member. Let them get in on the action because the deal is the more subs we get, the more videos I can put out and the more content you get. Seems like a pretty big win to me. So go ahead and hit that big red sub button and subscribe today. I repeat one more time for the people in the back, just not a big fan of anyone. Now, I'm not saying this is not a class that you can't draft someone around 2 or 3 because the Broncos had the luxury of having 2 seconds and 2 thirds. So let's say you're in the second round and Desmond Ridder falls to you with the last pick in the second round. And you went out and you got an edge rusher in round 1 and you got a tackle in round 2. And sure, I would be fine with picking Desmond Ridder at the end of the second round for the potential upside, as long as the Broncos are in on the fact that Ridder is a legitimate quarterback that has a chance to be a starting QB. Not because, well, we need a QB and the boards have him high, so you might as well pick him. No, make sure you are picking a guy you believe can be a starting quarterback. Let's say the Broncos do go and get an edge with that top 10 pick at the number 9 overall spot. I've got Kayvon Thibodeaux on there as a big reach. I don't think he'll fall to 9, but I do believe maybe he could slip. I've seen his name flirted around and tossed around enough that people could see him falling in the draft due to some lack of football desire and love issues. Listen, If that's not true, then I'm all for that rumor being spread. So he does slip a little bit. And the Broncos maybe go from 9-6 or 9-7 and grab, at one point, was the number one guy on everyone's draft big board. But the offseason has let people get a little bored, want to get creative, change it up a little bit, and have Thibodeaux slip a little bit. Ojabo at 9, I think, would be a great pick along with Jermaine Johnson. I'm not huge on George Karlaftis. A lot of people are. I'm out. Mark Cuban, not for me. And then Travon Walker. Keep an eye on him in round 2 or 3. He's just a part of a loaded Georgia team that's got top guys like Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt, a top safety. Basically, everyone on that team is loaded. So Walker, I think, has kind of been forgotten about, but keep an eye on him in rounds 2 and 3 in the draft. We've gone through, 15 names at this point? So with that all being said, and with that in mind, who do you want the Broncos to draft? Round 1, round 2, who's your favorite guy? Let me know who you want to see suiting up at Mile High next season. I think every single person that loves the draft always falls in love with the prospect, not even a round 1 guy, but just a prospect at any point in the draft, and you're always banking when your team's on the clock, when Denver's on the clock in rounds 3, 4, 5, you're like, pick my guy, pick my guy. So let me know who you want to see the Broncos draft at some point in the 2022 NFL Draft. Let's check out the depth chart here for the Broncos linebacker room, because I think that sets the stage nicely for the prospects to watch at the combine out of the linebacker room. So a lot of this is pretty dependent on what Denver does in the offseason. We'll expand on that later on. But they are maybe moving on from Malik Reed, A.J. Johnson, and Josie Jewell. Love Baron Browning. Kenny Young hitting free agency as well. So if it's just Browning returning, they've got to give him a partner to work with at the interior linebacker position. And here are 5 guys that could fit that spot very nicely. Devin Lloyd and Nakobe Dean are studs. They have been mocked to the Broncos at number 9 in a handful of mock drafts across all publications. And we look at them a little closer here, and they are, in my opinion, can't miss guys. I just don't see a way how these two players don't turn out to be absolute studs, Pro Bowl players, maybe even an All-Pro. A lot of, Devin Lloyd reminds me of Luke Kuechly. Actually, kind of a Luke Kuechly is in between these two guys, but Devin Lloyd specifically, I think, is the best linebacker in this draft class because of what he's able to do in the run-stopping game. 22 tackles for loss. He can rush the passer, 8 sacks. He can also work in pass coverage, 4 interceptions. He does everything you want a linebacker to do, and Nakobe Dean is fantastic. The only issue is his name's not Devin Lloyd. And he's still going to be a great player. And if he ends up in Denver, don't be too sad if it's not Devin Lloyd. But I think these two guys are going to be complete studs. However, if Denver does not want to go linebacker in the first round, the last 3 names would be some good picks in rounds 2, 3, or 4. I had someone comment on a Broncos video just yesterday asking, hey, what do you think of Leo Chenal out of Wisconsin? I like him a lot. I don't love him in round 2. I don't love him in round 1. Maybe not even around 2, maybe the last pick in round 2, early round 3 kind of guy. But Chad Muma out of Wyoming, just up the door right there, right? You drive up, cross over the border, get into Cheyenne, head west, you're in Casper, and boom. Muma doesn't even have to move far to play in Denver. So that would be a good pick. Brian Asamoah, he kind of is more of a free safety linebacker, very athletic, maybe not the ideal size for a run-stopping linebacker, but he can do a lot of things very well, a very versatile player, an awesome chess piece to have if you're the new DC in Denver, Ejiro Evero. The ultimate thing that comes down to this, though, is Josie Jewell and A.J. Johnson are kind of your wild cards. If Denver does not re-sign either of those guys, they have to fill that need in the draft or free agency. The draft, much cheaper than free agency. You got to give these guys rookie contracts. Anyone picked out of the first round, you're not paying them much anyway. But if they do go out and re-sign Josie Jewell and A.J. Johnson, or just even one of those two guys, then that need for a linebacker pretty much plummets in the draft, and they're not picking someone in the first round because that would just be overkill at a position that honestly is declining in terms of its importance on the NFL field. We'll look at some other great guys to keep an eye on for in just a second. But I want to tell you about this sweet deal going on at Fanatics. It's a Broncos jacket, comes in multiple colors, and it's on sale. Head on over to chatsports.com/Broncos jacket. I got that link in the comments and the description of the video. It's still a little chilly out there. I wish we were out of the weeds with winter. We got a couple more weeks to go. Plus, everyone knows you get jackets when it's warmer outside. You get it on sale. You'll thank yourself next fall when you don't have to go out and pay a full price jacket. Get it on sale right now. Chatsports.com/Broncos jacket. Final two positions we'll keep an eye on for in the combine is the offensive line. I think it's important to look at the offensive line because a lot of familiar faces returning. Only Bobby Massey is hitting free agency of that starting lineup. Calvin Anderson, he's not going to come back. Neither will Cam Fleming. Dalton Reisner, second-round pick from a couple of years ago. He's on the last deal of his rookie contract. Broncos wouldn't save much by cutting him, so I doubt they move on from him. Now, they did pay Graham Glasgow a good amount of money from Detroit. They could save some money, but the dead cap hit for this season is still pretty high, so I'm guessing they don't look to replace either of these guys, but maybe they want to replace them next year, and they get a jump start on that in this draft class, or they just go, you know what, these two guys both got injured last year, both underperformed at times. We want to move on altogether. And here are some guards to do that. So we'll look at the guard position first. This is not a loaded class at the guard spot. I don't really know what draft ever is super loaded at guards, but these aren't the guys that you think of going in round 1, but they could be rounds 3, 4, maybe even 5. Keep an eye on Kenyon Green and Zion Johnson. Those are rounds 2 players. The other 3 guys, they're going to fall into day 3 of the NFL draft, and I think it's important to always throw a player from a small school. So we got Cole Strange out of University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, because I think it's important to have an offensive lineman who came from a D3 or like a D1 FCS, because those guys, they're grinders. They want to work hard. They have been given nothing so far. They didn't play under the big lights. They didn't go to a big SEC school, and it kind of reminds me of Quinn Miners. Went to University of Wisconsin Whitewater, balled out in the Senior Bowl last year, made a name for himself. So Cole Strange, that's my guy in this upcoming draft class at the offensive line position. Before we look at some tackles to keep an eye on, I want you guys to go ahead and get a part of the show by shouting out your college team. I'm a Tennessee guy, went to Knoxville, loved my 4 years at UTK, but let me know where you went to school, what team you love to watch for on Saturday before we get to the best day of the week, Sunday. Rep your college team down in the comment section below. Finally, last 5 players to watch for of the 25 in the NFL Combine, it's some tackles because Bobby Massey does need to be replaced. That's an immediate hole that needs to be filled. I don't have Evan Neal on here because I don't think Evan Neal's going to fall to Denver at 9. And I don't see the Broncos trading up to get Evan Neal. But Charles Cross and Ikem Ekwonu out of NC State, those are guys that could be available at 9. And then I have Trevor Penning. Penning is from Iowa. And there's just something about offensive linemen from Iowa that grew up pushing corn, tipping cows over. They're strong badasses, and honestly, he looks like a player that when he was in Pee Wee football, they had to recreate the whole benchwarmer skit where they get a birth certificate out for him because he was way too big compared to the rest of the guys on the field. Daniel Falale out of Minnesota, he is just a massive human being, a boulder, needs to work on his footwork a little bit, but you know what? That's why you pay NFL coaches, to improve players. And then Darian Kennard, not as big as some of these other guys out there, but he's still an offensive tackle. He's still very big. Like what I see out of him in pass protection, just needs to improve in the run protection portion of his job. An idea that maybe could happen is, let's say the Broncos trade for a quarterback and they still have their 9th overall pick. Well, they could go out and do the Tom Brady route. And what is that? You get a guy like Tom Brady. Well, you're not going to get Tom Brady, but you get a veteran quarterback, and then you draft an offensive lineman to complement him. What did the Bucs do when they got Brady? They went out and got Tristan Wirfs, who was an all-pro as a rookie and never missed a snap until the playoffs this season. So I kind of like the idea of getting a quarterback in free agent, or not free agency this situation, but trading for, like, let's say a Kirk Cousins. Let's say Peyton does that. All right, then let's keep Kirk Cousins upright because he's the quarterback now. So let's buy in on this. Let's draft a new right tackle like Charles Cross. Charles Cross and Garrett Bowles, that'd be a nasty offensive line for Denver. That'd be a lot of fun with an established quarterback, but there are bigger fish to fry, bigger needs for Denver than the tackle spot like the quarterback position. Wrap up the video here. If you guys have not followed me on Twitter, make sure you do so. Follow me at Matthew PD. Always talking about the NFL, keeping it light, liking tweets that are pro-Ukraine, fuck Russia. So make sure you follow me on Twitter at Matthew PD, and we'll catch you guys later here on the Broncos Breakdown.